I have the privilege of introducing Emily Egan. She serves as the Associate Director in the Office of Campus Ministry at Boston College. In this role, she plays a key part in guiding students' spiritual journeys through retreats, service immersions, pastoral accompaniment, and leadership development. Emily deeply values cultivating spaces where the soul feels its worth and inviting students to discern how their unique gifts can contribute to the greater good.
Thank you, Marissa. I have the privilege of introducing Doc Miller. Doc is a former Mary Knowles seminarian. He has been an educator for the past 60 years, teaching 8th grade social studies for many years, and then going on to teach in a number of universities. Working with the educational organization Facing History and Ourselves, he has also been deeply involved in training teachers in Palestine, Israel, South Africa, Northern Ireland, Colombia, and Panama. For the past 18 years, he has also been a mentor in Boston College's Arrupe International Immersion Program, accompanying students, including myself and Marissa, on numerous trips to Latin America. So with that being said, Marissa and I are so grateful to introduce two of our most favorite people on the entire planet, Doc Miller and Emily Egan.
So good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. There's an image that I really like thinking about you coming here tonight and really thinking about you could be doing anything tonight. You could be studying, you could be hanging out with friends, you could be watching TV, but you chose to come here. So the image that I love is if you just move your inch in like a quarter of a direction towards God, God comes running at you with open arms, so excited and thrilled to be with you. So that's an image I want to have you start to think about during our time together. In Ignatian spirituality, we think about the idea of seeking God in all things. And that can be in overtly religious experiences, like maybe some of you were at the Advent Christmas Mass this past Sunday, but also in ordinary things, in the beauty of nature, in love of family, in solidarity with those who are suffering. Those are all different ways to seek God. Tonight, Doc and I want to zone in on one particular way to seek God, and that's the gift of spiritual friendship. Doc and I have been friends for about 5 years. We met through hearing about one another through other students. So I would hear his name a lot of, you have to meet this guy, Doc. He's great. He kind of reminds me of you, the way he talks about God, the way he envisions spirituality. I think you'd have a lot in common. He heard similar things about me. And for a long time, I did absolutely nothing with this information. I was like, okay, that's nice, and just kept moving. But eventually, there was something event coming up that I thought, oh, this guy Doc I heard about, he might enjoy that. So I emailed him and invited him to the event. And then he responded by saying, great, let's get coffee. So we got together, we had coffee, and I could see pretty quickly why students thought we would get along. We really hit it off. And a lot of what we spoke about was you. After that initial get-together, I think we started to get together once a month for the past 5 years, every single month. And we would talk about the presence of God in different ways, but really, mostly the way we saw God in you. The way that when you go out of your way to be kind, when you don't turn away in the face of injustice. I can even think of particular people in this room. I saw Sully, the way you live your life like poetry instead of prose. Or Alex, how your heart just keeps getting bigger when hard things happen. That's incredible to me. I mean, that's how you make God known to us, and that's a lot of what we talk about. I want to point out a couple things about spiritual friendship. It's probably not just going to happen to you or fall on your lap. You'll notice that Doc and I took initiative in reaching out to each other. I reached out to him, and then he asked me for coffee. So spiritual friendship won't just happen. Spiritual friendship also might not be with the most obvious or convenient person that happens to be in proximity with you. We are at different stages of life. We're at different ages. We don't work in the same place. We don't run in similar social circles. But we make it a point to meet on that monthly basis. And in some ways, it's not easy. We have to go out of our way to do it. So if you're interested in spiritual friendship, it may not be very obvious who that's going to be with or convenient. And lastly, there's going to be some kind of structure to it. And that structure can look different with each person. It's not going to look the same. Not all friendships can be all things, and that's fine. But it can help to cultivate depth and to have intention by thinking about how you'll make this a regular part of your life. With some friends that I know is not realistic to see in person, we text and voice memo, and that's the way that we spiritually connect. With other friends, we have an annual get-together once a year where we reflect on life and look back and said, what were the graces of that year? What's hard about that year? Some of you experience small faith communities and things like CLC or homecoming, but there is some type of commitment and some type of intentionality. I also like to put this idea of spiritual friendship into the context of the Jesuits and Ignatian tradition. I like to think about how sometimes St. Ignatius, along with his first companions, St. Ignatius of Loyola, Peter Faber, St. Francis Xavier, they were college friends. And they were simply studying together at the University of Paris when they started creating this dynamic where they called themselves friends in God and companions on the journey. And something about that friendship put their hearts on fire and made them imagine and dream of things that the project of Boston College wouldn't exist if it weren't for that spiritual friendship, which is pretty incredible. I'm going to hand it to Doc, and he is going to share a little bit what spiritual friendship actually entails, what it looks like in action, and then I'll come back sharing what a difference it's made in my life and what a difference I think it could make in your life if it's something that you pursue. Because I do think one of the unique things of being at BC is it's an opportunity to cultivate friendships of the heart. It's really important to develop relationships that help you turn from the self to the soul. Friendships where you can explore love, mystery, faith, hope. Again, that's not going to be every friendship, but I would argue that if you make that a dimension of your life, if you make that a commitment, it's going to make your experience here so much richer, so much deeper. Doc.
Thanks, Emily. I'm grateful to be here tonight and just to get a chance to talk with you about, I think, some of the most, what's central to me in life. I want to hit on 3 points. The first part is we're talking about spiritual friendship, spirituality. What is spirituality? And then what is spiritual friendship? And finally, how might one get involved if you're interested in pursuing that? So first, what is spirituality? And as happens in Agape Latte, we're supposed to tell our story. This is my take on it. I'm not trying to give any official theories or anything. I'm trying to how I've experienced it in living 81 years. When I think of spirituality, I think of a quote by an Irish writer some of you know, John O'Donohue. And he said, spirituality is the art of homecoming. I love the word homecoming because we all want to go home. There's a sacred center in each of us. And touching that, man, it's everything. That's how this is out of my experience. Go home. Meister Eckhart, who I love, a theologian, Dominican priest from the Middle Ages, said a couple things. He said, God only wants a temple, a human person, who is perfectly and completely empty. What's it like when all the distractions stop? You know how our minds race? how we're thinking. We have thoughts. We have so many things. This is going on. I got this paper here. Well, I wish I didn't say this to the friend. The emotions that we feel. Buddhists call it monkey mind. And we're moving around all the time in our mind. You know what I just want to yell to myself, to all of us? Stop. Be still. Go home. When we do that, Meister Eckhart said when we do that, he said, stillness is the doorway to God. That's how I've experienced spirituality. If I can stop and just let go and be empty, all of my busyness stops, and then there's room for God. Eckhart went on to say, he wrote many books, gave hundreds and hundreds of sermons throughout Europe. He was very popular at the University of Paris and so on. He said, all the stuff I've said in homilies and sermons, all the stuff that I've written, at the heart of it all is just this. There is a light within you. And I'm looking at every one of you, and some of you I know well, and it's such a grace in my life. And I see the light in Leslie and Emily and every face out dead, and I could go on and on. And knowing that changes everything for me. And it's not just with people, you know, I mean, Steve Pope and I have worked at prison for years and at Norfolk, walking in and just seeing the light in those guys, you know, seeing the light in the cashier at Stop and Shop. When you see that light in someone, when you see that light in yourself, everything changes. Greg Boyle says, when you see the splendor of God, the radiance of God in a person, love happens. You know, that's been my experience. So spirituality, there's a light within you. On the last Arrupe trip, the last Arrupe meeting, for years I've done a lot of Arrupe trips, I always give the students a poem by a Sufi Muslim poet from the Middle Ages, Hafiz. And you know, Mary, my dear friend Mary Troxel, who travels with Steve and me many times on many trips through the years, knows this. The poem, we were talking this morning, Mary and I had coffee this morning, and we were talking about the loneliness that's out there. You know, all of us sometimes, that's being human. And we were talking about particular students, friends we know, and the loneliness there. Hafiz says, this is his poem, his meditation. He says, when you are lonely and in darkness, I wish I could show you the astonishing light of your own being. When you're lying in bed at night, and finally that monkey mind stops and you still down. So if you see that astonishing, that's the Holy Spirit. Man, I'm big on the Spirit. It's everything to me because it burns in all of us. If we wake up, God doesn't go anywhere. God's in our heart. And so, Pope Francis said, there's the spark of God in each of us. That's it, man, the light. My prayer for me, and I don't say this, I wouldn't push any, you've got to find what works for you. For me, I say 2 lines often, and it helps. The 2 lines are simply, be still, stop, be still, empty, get centered, go to your sacred center. Be still, 2 words, be still, and then I say, God's golden radiance fills the world. I had an experience at a Jesuit high school on retreat when I was 18, and I saw that, I felt a sense of that presence of God, that light, that radiance. And so for me, that God's golden radiance, I feel it, man, I feel it looking in each one of your eyes now. It's there if we look. And it changes everything. That's the thing. I'm a happy guy because of that. And so the radiance, the light, the Holy Spirit is in all of us. And I see each of us. This is an important part to me. I see that we are all different manifestations of the radiance, you know? We all let the light, and I really believe that. And seeing that, it changes everything for me, as I've said. Okay, so that's, to me, the heart of spirituality in terms of my own story, my own experience. Next thing I want to hit on, what's spiritual friendship? First of all, it's a friendship. What's a friendship? A friendship is somebody who you're lucky if you have friends. Some people don't, and it's sad. A friend is somebody you're open with, you're honest with, you can trust. Think about it. That's a big thing, trusting. You laugh with, you talk about things you care about with, and you're vulnerable with. You're vulnerable with. When I met my wife, love of my life, Barbara, the thing, 54 years married, she's home, I won't get on, anyway. One of the things that lit me up with her is I could be myself. I had a little hair then. I didn't have to worry about how I parted my hair. I could be myself. And that's what a friendship is. And if you're going to be yourself and talk about what matters, then in a friendship, then you might well get into what the heck is the meaning of life for you. And you might have the courage to raise questions like, with your friend who you do trust, do you pray? What's it like for you? You might ask questions like, how do you find meaning in life? How do you experience God? Do you experience God at all? Do you have doubts? What are your struggles? Having the guts to raise that, you don't have to force it. If it doesn't feel right, you don't have to do it. But you can sense sometimes that it's okay to bring it up. And it can open doors that are just wonderful. Spiritual teacher I like, Ram Dass, he says, I love this line, the best thing you can do for another person is to make contact with their sacred center. Let that sink in. A British writer, a woman, Margaret Silk, who has studied Ignatian spirituality for many years and written some great books on it, she says, spiritual friendship is the God in me connecting with the God in you. And I got to tell you, man, that's how I've experienced it. And it lights the world up. And I don't care if it sounds corny. That's what I experience in spiritual friendship. And it takes courage. Think of the word courage, core, C-O-U-R. It comes from the word for heart. You got to be open-hearted. And you got to have courage to try it, as Emily was saying. And a great philosopher, been quoting all these people, is the philosopher Sully. I had coffee with Sully a couple of weeks ago, and she has no idea what I'm going to say. And I said, so Sul, Emily and I are going to give a talk on spiritual friendship. What would you say about it? Do you even know what you said? I had thought not. We're at Tate up the street. But words of wisdom from the philosopher Sully. She said, spiritual friendship has many forms. And that's so true. It's no cookie cutter formula. It's being yourself. You know, you might wind up talking about, I'm a sports junkie. I could talk sports with Joe forever, you know, or many. And you can talk about anything under the sun. But you might at times feel like taking it into a deeper level too, which is fine. You've got to sense it. It's got to be comfortable. I don't want to go. I go too long. I don't want to. I better shut up soon. I wanted to do a reading, but that's okay, of a particular experience. I got to say, in a spiritual friendship, there's no judgment. In a good friendship, right? You don't worry about judgments. There's a respect for your friend. It's not and that's why you feel free to be yourself. There's a respect and appreciation. Think of the word respect. Spect means spectacles. Seeing. Means looking again. Looking deeper. Seeing the light. When you see the light, it changes. I'm telling you. Thomas Merton had a great experience. He was a monk a famous monk who wrote a lot, but he was at the dentist in 1957 in downtown Louisville, Kentucky. And he just had this sense of all these people are walking around shining like the sun, but they don't know it. When you start to see the light, you have that Merton experience, I think. So, as Emily said, if you find somebody where you connect with this level, don't just let it ride. You might want to say, why don't we get together once in a while? You know, Alex came up to me before, and he said, you know, you open Friday, you know? I mean, just connecting, having a structure on a regular basis helps. And it needs that. It takes courage to say it, too. Because I feel like the world is divided into fear. I can scream, my voice is so loud. A lot of years teaching 8th graders. There's fear and there's love. And where do you come down? And love is the only thing that overcomes fear. And love is God. So, it's Christmas season. And Christmas is a time of light in the midst of darkness. And seeing that light is everything. Daniel Harrington, a Jesuit biblical scholar, he's written a lot, but one book on Jesus, he said, Jesus conveyed a vision of the present world as radiant. I like the word vision. I like all that sentence, but vision. What do you see when you see people? What do you see when you see the other? I could go on forever. I got to shut up. I just want to say a spiritual friendship can be such a gift. Connecting at this level can be so liberating. One of the students I was meeting with just last week said, it just feels so liberating when you can talk like this. There is a freedom. So Emily and I are encouraging you to pursue this possibility, if it at all appeals to you as a possibility. Spiritual friendship can be such a grace in your life, and we're encouraging that. Emily.
Thanks, Doc. So just wanted to share a few examples of the difference that spiritual direction can make in your life and how it's made in my life. Doc spoke about courage and vulnerability. It brings back this poignant memory of being in college and really enjoying my friendship with this guy, Matt. And I liked him because he was an original thinker, which is something I appreciate. I never knew where he was going or what he was going to say. And I've always been a deeply faith-filled person, but I haven't always been comfortable bringing it up with other people or asking them about it. I think I had fears around it, like you said. I feared that they would project that I thought all types of things that other people who spoke about God believed, which wasn't necessarily true. I didn't want a million labels put on me. I feared that somebody might think I was naive or unintelligent for wanting to talk about God. I think I even feared people would think I didn't want to have fun, which is not true, any of you that know me. So the older I got, the more comfortable in my own skin, and I hope all of you are in the process of doing that bit by bit. But I remember working up the courage and saying to Matt, so what do you think about God? And he looked off into the distance, and I was like, oh, this is not going to land. This guy wants to get out of this conversation. And he turned, and his whole face lit up. And he goes, you know what I think of God? I think God is like a chef. And we're like ingredients, and he adds a little bit, and it takes a lot of care, and sometimes you have to stew it, but sometimes it goes faster. And it was the most beautiful, captivating metaphor of the divine that I never would have known unless I asked him about it. And I think that's such a big piece of one another that we can miss. And that's a difference spiritual friendship can make. It helps you not stay on the surface, but go to a deeper level. And not make the mistake of presuming, because we haven't spoken about your relationship with God, that it's not there. This was not a guy that was very involved in campus ministry. He didn't wear his faith on his sleeve, but it was a huge piece of who he was. And I'm so glad I didn't miss that. Another difference spiritual friendship can make in your life, it's made in mine, is pointing to you a horizon of meaning that you're not going to get on your own. Not too long ago, I can remember describing a scenario with Doc of something that had hurt me. And I think I was justified. I was like, I don't like the way I was treated there. And it was helpful to air it out and to describe it. But Doc didn't let me stay there. He pushed me. He said, okay, so that bothered you. You didn't like that. There's more to your relationship with that person that I've heard about for the past 5 years than you're seeing right now. And that can be really hard to see by yourself sometimes. Sometimes you need somebody to remind you of who you want to be, even if you don't like the way somebody else is acting. And that's a gift, that horizon that friendship can point you towards. And then lastly, the gift of savoring life. Sometimes when I talk to students, I say, you can experience BC like a treadmill or like a journey. And if you're not careful, life can just become a checklist, a to-do list. And that is no way to receive the gift of life. And all of us, you're in finals right now. I'm sure you feel it right now. It's hard. It's a temptation. To make it really practical, the favorite part of my day, every day, is when I get a hug from my 4-year-old son, Gavin. It's just best part of my morning. And I could appreciate that and keep moving and say, that was a nice part of the day. Or I could bring it up in spiritual friendship and really break it open and say, oh, the way his face lights up, the way his eyes dance, like they could dance before he could speak, the way his eyebrows arch, just like his father's. When I see him look at me like that, it helps me imagine how God looks at me. And that's what spiritual friendship can open up. Lastly, it's Christmas. I want to bring you back to where we started, which is if you simply look in the direction of God, God's going to come running at you, open arms, rejoicing to be with you. And isn't that really the point of Christmas, right? A God that is so desiring to be with us, wants to be so close to us, is so creative at loving us, that God becomes one of us. And that's the joy of the Christmas season, the incarnation, is every single part of your life, the boring parts, the heartbreaking parts, the good parts, the joyful parts. God wants to companion you in that. And maybe this Christmas season is a chance for you to look around and think about who are the people in my life, either that are already doing it or who might help me, turn my head just a bit and see God rushing at me this Christmas season. Thank you.